Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So I've been able to drive this brand new 2022 Toyota Tundra TRD Pro around for a couple of days now, and at this point I think I have a pretty good idea of how I feel about all the exterior cues as well as all of the interior bits. So in this video I'm going to highlight the good and bad of both the outside as well as the interior. So I've got my notes written down here, so hopefully I don't deviate too much as we go through this. I'll try to run through my points as fast as possible too, and tell me what you think. Tell me if you agree on my thoughts on a few of these things. So starting with the outside, with the exterior, obviously this is that midnight black metallic, right? And if you have OCD, I don't recommend getting a black vehicle because paint swirls will be your arch nemesis. But starting with this digital camo pattern, personally I like it. I think it's unique and it really sets the Tundra TRD Pro apart from its competition. So I think this is pretty cool. And of course, you get it all throughout the truck, right? You get it in the rear bumper too, up front here. I like it. I think it is a plus. Second thing that I have for good, so I'm gonna go over the good traits on the outside and then I'll wrap up with the not so good traits, and I'll do the same for the interior for the record. So the body lines. I didn't think I was gonna like this that much, especially coming from a Raptor where it has the widest body flares ever. You guys know I had the 21 Gen 3 Raptor recently, and I don't know, I thought this was gonna be extra underwhelming, but it isn't. I think it really does strike a good balance, a nice happy medium of being aggressive but not too overly done and in your face. I'll show you the back too real quick. So again, not too wide, but wide enough still to require the marker lights as a requirement for a DOT requirement, Department of Transportation, right? So there's a good look at the body lines there. The wheels would be my next item for good. I think these are a huge win. And I didn't think I was gonna be able to like any other BBS wheel better than that previous 18-inch forged BBS wheel. If you recall, it's the same exact wheel that's on my Land Cruiser Heritage Edition, but black. And I think they're on par or perhaps even one-upped it in my personal opinion. I think they look awesome. I guess on that note too, I didn't write this down, but I think these Falcon Wild Peak tires actually fit the bill of this TRD Pro. Granted, I would still go bigger. Like I mentioned, probably go 35s and try to do KO2s or Nitto Ridge grapplers, but at least they're semi-aggressive, right? And they got a good reputation. The next is the taillight. So this is kind of I'm 50-50 on this, but I chalked it up to a good thing. Just because, you know, they truly are super unique. You know, you got the darkened housing in between the red here. I think it looks cool. You tell me if you agree with that. So you got more of that camo back here, of course. But my next item on the list for a good thing would be these headlights. Here, look at it from the side first. See that? Kind of like see the metal in here. I don't know. I think that looks awesome. It doesn't look cheap at all, which I was kind of worried that it would. But I think they look aggressive. Let's see if I can actually focus. Sorry. Try not to get too much reflection on them. I think they look awesome, especially the darkened housing. And when you actually turn it on, this goes white right here. I think it looks awesome. Alrighty, the marker lights and light bar. This is going to be totally a hit or miss if you like it or not. But it being the TRD Pro, I think it fits the bill. So you got this here, of course. And I'll show you when I'm on the inside. You get the TRD light bar switch on the left-hand side of the dash. So I think that's great. This is your Toyota safety sense, by the way. The little radar detector there for adaptive cruise control and whatnot. What's next? Hood vents. So I have this both on the good and bad, really. I don't like that they're not functional, but at this point, having a non-functional vent on the hood is almost a Toyota staple, right? A TRD Pro staple, I should say. Granted, you get it on other trims too, I understand, but non-functional, they look cool, you know, set apart as a TRD Pro, but nah, when you're sitting behind the wheel, the steering wheel, you look out and I just see this choppy plastic piece just kind of slapped on here, which I don't know. So that, like I said, I have it on my good and bad list here. What else? So TRD Pro stamp on the tailgate, I chalked this up to a win. Some people think it's totally overdone and I understand that entirely. I think they could have made this a little smaller, or perhaps kept it in the bottom right hand corner, as per usual, if you will. But there's no mistaking this for any other truck, so I chalked it up to a win. Composite bed. So the fact that it has a composite bed similar to what you find in the Tacoma, I think this is good. I prefer this over like a Line X rough bed liner. Granted, things slip around a lot easier in here. I think it just looks better. So big fan of that. Also, I didn't write this down either, but the fact that this tailgate, I'm lifting up with one finger here, is super light. I like that. Sorry guys, the wind's kicking up a little bit here. Hopefully it's not too bad. So light tailgate, TRD tune, Fox suspension. Show you the back. And although I haven't done any extreme off-roading, it is extremely smooth riding around. You know, just going in and out of driveways, big dips in the road. It just soaks up everything with such ease. So I think this is definitely a win. Again, a staple for the TRD Pros, having that suspension system. And I think that about wraps up my favorite bits of the outside. Let's go to the more controversial topics, the bad things. There's only a few of them really for the outside before we jump inside. The big front grille. This is I guess kind of a long-standing issue for some people. It is huge, right? So I mean, that grille takes up 90% of the real estate up front. But I don't know. I can see why some people like it, some people don't like it. I totally understand. It is big. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of that, combined with, and I mentioned this in my other videos, I think, but just how big this front end is. Right? So this entire front end is just super long. And it's similar to the Tacoma in that regard. And for that same reason, I always preferred the 2015 Tacoma and older, right? That previous generation Tacoma. And on the previous Tundra, if you guys know me, it kind of has a stubby nose as well. It is probably a good 6 inches shorter than this front end, and I like that. And it had a much bigger engine, bigger displacement engine in there too, the 5.7, right? Whereas we get the 3.5 in here, the iForce Max. So I don't like that. That'd be my biggest quote-unquote gripe about it. And like I mentioned earlier, the fake hood vents up here was another bad thing on the exterior. And the final thing that I did not like about the exterior was the flimsy doors. So this was the case on the previous Tundra too. These are, I would argue, they're still heavier. They feel more sturdy than the previous Tundra, but the previous Tundra was like featherweight, right? And not in a good way. Whereas this is a little bit better, I would say, but they still feel flimsy. Like when you shut the door too, like especially the back doors, that just felt super light. And I don't know. It doesn't feel sturdy. So that is my final gripe on the exterior. So let's jump inside here and talk through the good and bad of the interior. I have a little bit more to say about this. I'm actually gonna fire it up as it's kind of hot. I'll bring that back. So for starters, I already mentioned it, but when you actually hit start, I've grown used to hitting that start button, and then a second later, within a second, it'll fire up, right? So almost instantaneous, whereas that is not the case with the Tundra TRD Pro here. You hit the button and you wait 2.5 seconds, and it'll kind of do a weak fire up. Let's talk through the good first. Just like we did on the outside, I think this entire infotainment section here is awesome. Super responsive. Everything within here.
Zero trust architecture.
Everything within here is super responsive. And again, easy to use given how big it is. You just reach over here. Everything is so easy to read and see in it. So the infotainment, I'm a fan of this entire section. I'm not going to dissect it in here for this video, but I definitely chalk that up to a win. You know, one other thing I guess we'll look at is just how amazing this backup camera is. I think the resolution is phenomenal. So this is by far the best backup camera I've had. I would argue even better than the Raptor that I had. So of course, it turns with it, kind of shows you the direction with the steering wheel as I'm turning the wheel, right? So love the resolution of this. I think that is definitely a win. Let me pop out of there. What else? Cooled seats. So I have it on here, and I tell you what, these are by far the best cooled seats I've ever had. So I didn't write anything. This is in precedence, my order here, or priority, I should say. They're just things as I thought of as I was looking around and experiencing the interior here. So the cooled seats, it really kicks. It really is blowing. So that is by far the best cooled seats that I have ever experienced anyway. Let's pop up the road as I continue to chat here. The red interior was, as I'm reading through the comments, I would say about 50% of you guys seem to really, really like it. I'm kind of getting in the shade here. Less glare for you. 50% of you seem to love it. Seem to love this interior, whereas the other half of you are like, no way, not in a million years. So I totally get it. It definitely caters to the younger demographic for sure. But the camo is sweet. I would be lying if I, okay, yikes. I'd be lying if I said I didn't like the camo in these seats, right? I think that is pretty cool. So I would prefer to get the black ones too. I think that's just easier on the eyes and I guess easier to live with on a long term. So I would lean that direction too. On the inside here, I've mentioned it in my previous video, but I do love this. I love this Toyota classic heritage script across the dash here. Could it have been a little smaller? Perhaps, but I like it. I think it's cool, and you can kind of tell it has a little bit of a red accent. You can kind of see it there, red accent around the letters, which is cool. Again, a reminder, this is a pre-production model prototype, so all the fit and finishes in here are not 100% final. So kind of keep that in mind as I'm critiquing some of this, okay? For instance, this may be the final material here. It probably is, but this is another thing I do not like. I don't like the piano black, gloss black material in here. You know, it shows fingerprints, shows dust. I've never been a huge fan of that. What else? Cup holders and wireless charging tray. So the wireless charging tray, I've been, like I said, I mean, maybe it's because it's a prototype, but it's been about 50. I have an OtterBox. To be fair, I have an OtterBox on my phone, which most people do have some sort of protective case. If I've learned that I have to kind of like tilt it a little bit on this, right, and it actually works a little bit better. If I lay it straight flat on here with this edger, it doesn't work. So, but if I tilt it a little bit, it actually charges. So kind of finicky, but I'm sure that will not be the issue for you guys. For those of you who do have a 22 Tundra, let me know if you're experiencing that. The cup holders too, I think they're good. The grip in the bottom here is actually a rubber material, whereas it's not like a slippery, super slippery plastic, hard plastic, right? Like kind of what you would find in the Land Cruiser, the 200 series. Hard plastic, your cups slide around. Even if you look at it, it'll slide to the left, right? This is a little bit deeper on the right-hand side, a little bit higher up on the left-hand side here. It's great too. You have two more back here, so that is nice. This entire section here, I could do without it. It just feels pretty flimsy, the entire thing. Oh, it's right here. My bad. I mean, great cargo space, coin holders, as if people carry coins anymore, and you got your USB ports there. This material here, again, I could do without it. I don't love that. It just seems really, really chintzy. And just, speaking on that note, sorry, I'm kind of diving into some of the bad things here, but just a lot of hard plastic throughout it. You find a lot more premium materials in the Raptor. Granted, the Raptor cost a lot more, so keep that in mind, to be fair, but a lot more hard plastic throughout here. The Raptor's interior is a better place to be, holistically. The gear selector is getting back to good here, back to good. So I think this gear selector, it feels premium. I love it, and it has a little TRD logo right there, you can see. I like this, so there's definitely a plus. What else? The doors. So the doors, I think the materials feel nice. This is kind of that, kind of a leather wrapped material seemingly with the red stitching up top and the white stitching down below, or black or gray. I can't see if that's maybe gray perhaps. This I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. So this is unique, guys. Like, this is a flat surface up top here, right? And it wasn't until I drove it for the first time comfortably I realized that it's awkward a little bit, at least for my personal driving style. So my personal driving style, I always have my elbow right here and I have my hand right here, and this is just kind of my natural thing. This is all totally personal preference, right? Not everybody drives like that, but I do. And it's just with it having a hard corner right here, not rounded out down here, I don't know, I find my elbow kind of getting sore on it. Granted, that's a small thing to gripe about, but I do think it's worth noting, truly. The door handle itself, you can see it is it's just a hard plastic, and I wonder if that's going to be in the final model. So I mean, previously, you know, they were kind of a big bulkier plastic in the Tundras, but like the Tacoma and the 4Runner, they have a little metal handle, very similar looking to this, right? So this I'm okay with it, although it looks and it is kind of cheap and flimsy, similar to the FJ. I think it'll age well anyway, right? So I'm trying to think of the bright side on that, but you know, sometimes less is more. So I think they're trying to strike a balance in that altogether. Look back at my notes here. Comfortable seats, they look better than the previous Tundra, of course. You know, the previous Tundra was a little bit more buttermilk basic, but and this is totally me just spitballing here. I could probably look at the specs and be proven wrong in a second, but they feel smaller. They feel not as wide, perhaps. I don't know. That's just kind of me going off of what I remember with my previous Tundras, okay? But like I said, these ones do absolutely look better. Pano sunroof, so that is, I don't know, if you're into sunroofs, this is a huge deal to you. I know my kiddos like it. They like having the big pano sunroof, but personally, I never care at all. To me, it's just one more thing that could break if you're seriously trying to off-road this thing. I'm okay with the normal standard sunroof. That's just me, though. I know some people like that is a must-have. So total preference thing. Talked about the seats. The perforated leather on the steering wheel, I think feels extremely premium. I don't have it on my list here, but as I'm looking at it, the fact that we don't have the old cruise control down here, I think that is, in my personal opinion, that's a big miss. Not a miss. I think I've just gotten used to driving Japanese vehicles. Like my old Subarus had it. Obviously all my Toyotas had that same exact, you know what I'm talking about, right? The little cruise control here, they just kind of bop up and down and set that way. So I really like that. I've grown used to it. So again, change is hard, right? Change is hard for people. So now we have it integrated within the actual steering wheel. But I feel like most manufacturers have it integrated in the steering wheel, right? The Raptor does for sure. What else? The final thing, I think, for the good side of things, I know I kind of sprinkled in some bad, is the headroom. So like I mentioned it when I opened up the back doors in my previous video, like there is a ton of headroom to enter the vehicle. So there's, you know, the doors are very long and they fill up the whole side of the cab. And then you can even see back there the little indents for if you got tall people sitting in your vehicle, they'll have some additional headspace, which, I don't know, it looks kind of wonky, but you know, first time you get somebody tall sitting in your back seat, I think they'll appreciate that additional few inches of space, right? All right, let's talk through the bad. The most obvious, my biggest gripe about the entire vehicle, honestly, is the JBL catback exhaust system. So this JBL sound system is wonderful, right? But Toyota has something called ESE, engine sound enhancement, right? And what it does, the JBL system, it picks up on key notes from the engine, like they're authentic notes, sounds coming from the engine, and just amplifies it, right? So it is synthetic, totally a fake engine sound coming through, and I hate that. You know, it sounds good, and I don't know. I kind of wish I did like it. Maybe if I was ignorant, I didn't know about it, then maybe I'd like it a lot better. But it bothers me a little bit that it just takes away from its authenticity a little bit, right? So I guess big picture wise, it really isn't that big of a deal. I think a lot of people get in here and they'll love it, especially if you've never driven a previous Tundra TRD Pro, previous generation. You will love this. I'm confident in saying that, but if you have owned that previous Tundra TRD Pro, you will have a hard time really loving this, I think. At any rate, I digress on the synthetic ESE engine sound enhancement. They're cheap in places. We talked about that. We already meowed about the piano black throughout, and just kind of hard plastic up top. Already mentioned that. Plastic door handle. Already mentioned the armrest. Sorry, I kind of sprinkled in some of my gripes as I was talking through the good, but this, good and bad. It's good if you're just resting your arm up here, great, and you're driving with your right hand. But if you're the type to actually have your hand on the wheel, and maybe if you've got shorter arms, kind of like me, it's I don't know, not the greatest, unfortunately. Tan headliner, another huge miss, I would say. This could have easily been a black headliner, right? I think they even offer it on the capstone, right? So I mean, this should have been black, absolutely. This entire thing, A-pillars and grab handle, should match it. Similar to what you find in the Tacoma, as I mentioned, right? In 2016 and up, Tacomas have always had a black headliner in them. What else? I think that I got a couple other smaller things in here. This is a personal preference. Some of you, I know, let me know if you agree with me on this. I think I'm going to be in the minority, but the drive modes. So just being able to, so I'm going to click through the modes here and show you what I'm talking about. Let me get a little closer for you. So you got sport, normal, and economy, eco mode, right? I do not like that stuff. And I'm kind of old school in that sense. I understand most people probably do like that, especially if you're going to go on a long distance trip. You want to flip it over to eco and really take your time and get good, not take your time, but get good gas mileage along the way. So I understand probably most people like that. I just like having one mode, one setting, you fire it up and rock and roll. Yeah, no matter what, you're in one mode, and that's like the best mode of the vehicle. So again, let me know if you agree with me on that. And the last two things I'm going to mention here is the digital gauge cluster. Personally, again, this is going to be a preference thing. I think Toyota was correct in making the jump to a fully digital gauge cluster. I think they were right in doing this. But my personal opinion is the analog older gauges are better. You know, and as I rev it here, like, that's not responsive. It doesn't feel like it's on par with the actual rev. I think it's a little laggy, but that's I don't know. I prefer analog, one less thing to break, really. Granted, analog ones could break too, but I feel like this is going to be a bigger issue. And the final thing that I do not like is the lack of cargo in the back seat. So underneath here is the giant battery pack, being this iForce Max, having the giant battery underneath that back seat. So you don't get that additional cargo space back there. You miss out on it. So that is, sorry guys, long video here, but that is it. Those are my thoughts. Hey Buggy, did you go swimming? Yeah. Nice. You want to get in it? Okay, we could do that. All right guys, well, wrapping up the video there. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if I'm a little left field on some of my comments here. But as always guys, I appreciate you watching. Until next time.